Okay, we're going to do parts of Chapter 9 now. Questions 1 through 16 were assigned. We'll see how far we go here on this first go around. Question 1, which of the following is not a reason for the popularity of partnership as a legal form? And the true answer there is that this is an older style question, but you still have to watch this for CPA exam problems because they'll still throw this in there. The concept of general partnership is that it is not as easy to raise cash or capital because all the assets of the individuals are at risk as general partners. This question, therefore, for number 1 of Chapter 9 is answer B. But today's LLCs pretty much negate that because there is legal liability under ownership there. So question 1 you probably wouldn't see too often anymore, but it might show up in order to show that you know that general partnerships have no legal liability protection, whereas the LLCs have the protection. Okay, question 2, how does partnership accounting differ from corporate? And that one is the fundamental part, which we did cover pretty well in class, which is that the C, individual capital accounts, replace your retained earnings pretty much. So just take a look at C and see if you don't agree with the fact that we covered that in class. Number 3, which of the following best describes the articles of partnership? And there the articles are not required to be in writing, so B is not true. And while the purpose of an A is partners' rights and responsibility, that's not required elements. You do not have to have those in there. So D, by default, because for C anyway, the articles are an agreement that limits partners' liability. That's not true. Liability is limited by the form of the partnership, if it's a limited partnership or if it's an LLC. So D becomes the right answer there, which is saying that it can be in writing or orally and forms the governance, however you form it. So that's the answer there, and that's a typical CPA type question. Okay, so we can move forward to number 4. We start getting into actual numbers now, so this gets a little bit more complex, and we'll try to make this easier to follow. 4 is a sort of a tough question because when you try to answer these questions in the form of prose, it's never so simple. But let's see what we get here. We've got 3 partners, Pat, Jean Lou, and Diane. They have their specific capital accounts. They're sharing equally, and then for an investment of 50, Marianne comes in and she's going to have a 25% interest based on this information. Which of the following best justifies the amounts of Mary Ann's investment? And the key here is, well, what's the problem? So let's see what it is. We've got capital accounts of 50. These are for the 3 that are already there, 30 and 20. So the 3 that are already there, the capital accounts add up to 100. Yet Mary Ann's going to come in, she's going to have to put in 50, and that 50 buys her 25%. Well, 25% of what will be a total of 200. I'm sorry, a total of 150. 25% of a total of 150 is not $50,000. It's less than 50. It's actually 37.5. If I'm not mistaken, let's get the calculator out and double check that. Just to make sure I'm not that's exactly right. But she has to cough up 50 for what will really only amount to a 37.5 interest in the capital account after she comes in. So they want to know what's the reason for that. Why is that? What could be one of the reasons why she's paying more for what will only be a 37.5 interest? And the typical reason for this is that while the capital accounts reflect the equity at the date of the balance sheet here, that's true, but they may not reflect the real fair value. The fair value of this amount might be much higher, and so it costs Marianne more to get in for a 25% interest than just based on the book value. This is sort of the theme of the whole course, is that when these transactions occur, it indicates a different fair value than the book value reflected on the books. And now we know, because it's $50,000 to buy in for a 25% interest. So that makes answer C, the book value of the partnership at net assets were less than the fair value. That's the most likely explanation for what's going on here. Okay, moving along to number 5. Now we start to actually get into real crunching of numbers, and let's see what happens here. They tell you that we have partnership capital accounts of A, B, and C. So let's set that up. Usually I like to draw them out. And we got 120, we've got 95, we've got 100. And that total is, let's see, 220. Okay, back again because of hitting the wrong button there. But this is question 5, I believe, is what we're doing. And we've got A, B, C. So as I said, I like to see how these look, set them up, 120. These are the capital accounts as given to us. And remember, the capital accounts are book capital, even though they may have started out at fair market value when the partnership or the LLC was created. But at the time we're looking at any of these, as far as we know, it's just an accumulation from a revaluation point when the partnership started, but now it's representing book from that revaluation standpoint, or whenever that occurred. So here we have David coming in, partner D is going to come in, and partner D is coming in, and it's going to cost $105K in order to get 30%. That means that this amount must represent 70% of some whole, and so the question then becomes, what is that fair market value for 70%? And as we've learned throughout the course, the way to do that is you take the total amount, the book value, and say, okay, if it's going to be worth 70%, so what does that mean in terms of total value? And that's going to be $450. The answer will be $450,000. So 450s, and again, the way to, I don't know about again, but the way to approach these problems is to look at the inside. When you got someone coming in from the outside, and what they're doing is they're going to put the money inside to the partnership, you got to look and say, okay, well, what's in there now? What does that represent? What is it going to represent? What is it? What's there now? What's it going to represent? So what's in there now is the 315. It's going to represent 70%. That means 450. So if this guy David, if he's coming in and he's going to get 30% for 105, that means that 30% of 105 puts us at a number of, let's do it 1 second, where you add the 105 to the 315, so that's going to put us at 420. 420, which is not quite enough to get us up to the 450, and that's the remeasurement. That's the remeasurement, is that we're going to wind up with book capital at 420 altogether, but it should be 450, so we have a goodwill book up, or a book up of something, to 450, and that is what we're going to wind up doing. So before D comes in, our old partners, A, B, and C, will get booked up by 30 to bring them up to a total capital of 345. So that'll make a 345. When you add the 315 to the 30 book up, that'll bring 345. Then you add D, David, and you get to 450. And 30% of 450 is what we're going to have to give David as his capital account, because it's now of the total book value, and so that is 135. If you do the math, 450 times 135, I'm sorry, times 30%, it's 135, and that's the answer, is D. Alright, so hopefully as we move through some more of these, it'll start becoming apparent that what you do is you figure out what is the total capital account going to be. Here's another way to do it. The other way to do it is we knew it was 315 before. We're going to add 105. That's going to give us 420. Now, it's true that these guys are going to represent 70%. So 70% of whatever the whole is got to be at least 315, and so that's why we get to the 450, because you're going to have to book it up. You're going to have to bring the goodwill up total to 450, because 315 is going to now own 70%. So it's what we're doing is remeasuring the 315. We're remeasuring the 315. 315 buys 70% of the whole, but the whole has got to be 450 in true value, because that's I think you're getting the idea. 315 is 70% on a fair market value, so the remeasurement has got to bring up the total to 450. But these two together are only going to equal 420. So in order to get our books remeasured, revalued, that's the best way to say it, revalued, we have this book up to of 30K. All right, again, I hope this is starting to make sense. Moving to question 6 now. Let's see what we have here. This is a question that is not bringing money into the partnership, but buying out parts of the existing partners. In other words, we've got C, D, and E, and their capital accounts are 140, 280, and 340, which totals, let's see what that totals to, 340, I'm sorry, let me get the calculator clear, 340, 280, and 140, that totals 760. But someone's going to pay the three of them, and that's going to be Crystal. K is coming in to buy out from the three of them, enough that there will be 25%. And they're going to pay $240 for that. And here again, we're told in this problem that goodwill is going to be recognized, so there's going to be a revaluation. And the way it works is we say, okay, well, if 240 represents 25%, and this is what we've been doing all semester long, if this represents 25%, then the fair value of everything must be 960, which means we're missing 200 is the goodwill. That's the book up. We have to book up. And we do this, again, we do this before we bring in the new partner. We do it before we bring in the new partner. And so we're going to book them up, C, D, and E, we're going to book them up to 960. So let's do that. And that difference is the 200. And now we have 4 partners in a partnership where the total capital has been booked up to 960. And that's because the new partner K is not putting money inside, they're buying out the existing ownership. So that means that K is now 25% of 960. 25% of 960 is 25% of 960 is indeed the 240 that represents what K bought. So everything's so far doing well. But we have to go back. We have to go back and now, in order to figure out, because the question's asking, what is D's capital count after this is all done? So we have to figure out what happens to D. And what happens to D is, well, first we have the book up of the goodwill, the revaluation. So let's see what that means. So on D's side, the way it works is D starts at capital of 280, okay. Then there's a book up of the 200 for everybody, and that book up percentage to D is their 30%, which is 60K. So now their capital account is booked up by 60K, so they're at 340. And now you're going to have the following. You're going to have the capital accounts of, let's see again, it's CDE are all going to get booked up. D's book up is the 340, but after bringing in K, D has, instead of having 30%, is going to have to give up their share of the 25%. In other words, this is their book up before bringing in K, and this represents 30%. But everybody's giving away enough that there's now a new 25% owner. So in other words, even D, this is D, is giving away 25% of their capital account so that it'll go to K. C is giving away 25%, E is giving away 25%, and even D is giving away 25%, so K becomes 25%. They're all giving, C and D and E are all giving away a portion of their capital accounts to make K a 25% owner, because K's money's not coming in like before. This is one where it's outside of the partnership. So in order to bring D's partnership capital account down where it equals, where the total 960, the 960, remember, is the capital accounts of 3 before bringing in 4. We booked up the 760 of the 3 to 960 to show the fair value and the goodwill. The goodwill book up, so we have 3 at 960. To show you another way, we have 3 at 960, but now we've got to make 4 equal 960. So of the 3, they're all going to give up 25% each in order to work it out, where the fourth one coming in is at 25%. Oops. Another oops. So that should be a 5. There you go. All right, so K's coming in, and K's going to be at 240, so everybody's got to give up their portion in order to get that to work. So going back to D again, if D's going to give up 25% of their new capital account, that number is 85K. That represents 25% of this, and so you bring the capital account down, and the answer is 255K. That's how it works. I've done it sort of the long way. They're trying a shorter way, but this gives you the long and short approach, or just the long approach. But you get the idea. All right, let's stop now, and then we'll continue with the rest of the questions.